They said it was just for a few days. Just until the guests leave. So they moved me, a 75-year-old widow, into the garage. No heat. No bathroom. Just a cot and a single light bulb swinging from the ceiling. But they didn't know I still owned the house. And by New Year's, they were the ones out in the cold. People always talk about the joy of the holidays. The music, the lights, the smell of cinnamon and pine. But for me, last Christmas began with a cold metal cot, a leaking ceiling, and the faint stench of paint thinner hanging in the air. That's how I spent Christmas Eve, in the garage. Not in a guest room. Not on the couch. The garage. I'm 75 years old. My name is Irene Harris. I've got silver gray bobbed hair, 2 good knees, a firm spine, and more self-control than anyone in my family deserves. I also happen to be the legal owner of the house I was exiled from. But let me take you back to the start, before the betrayal, before the freezing nights on a cot like a forgotten box of decorations shoved in the corner. It began when my son Ryan called just after Thanksgiving. "Hey Mom," he said, voice all cheerful like I didn't already know what was coming. "You're still coming to stay with us for the holidays, right? You'll be more comfortable here." Comfortable. That word used to mean something. When Ryan was little, I worked 2 jobs just to afford a space heater and bunk beds. I sacrificed years of comfort so that boy could have a clean shirt and a full belly. So yes, when he invited me, I said yes. I even baked my famous chocolate pecan pie, packed up my suitcase, and brought my best wool cardigan. It was supposed to be 2 weeks of joy, laughter, family. But the moment I arrived, something felt off. His wife, Melanie, barely looked up from her phone when she opened the door. Their kids, Logan and Chelsea, rushed past without so much as a hello. Ryan hugged me like he was squeezing a sack of flour. "Quick. Functional. Done. Good to see you, Mom," he said. "We're a little tight on space this year, but we've got a setup for you." I assumed the guest room would be ready, or maybe the pull-out couch in the den. But he led me, past the kitchen, through the laundry room, and finally, opened the door to the garage. I blinked, waiting for him to laugh. Waiting for the just kidding that never came. Inside was a folding cot, a space heater, and an old TV on a plastic crate. A thin blanket lay folded at the edge of the cot. No insulation. No bathroom. One bare light bulb dangled from the ceiling, flickering like it couldn't believe this either. "The guest room is being used by Melanie's sister and her kids," Ryan said quickly. "It's just until after the holidays. I promise." Melanie appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "And please don't touch anything on the shelves. That's our storage." Storage. That's what I was now. Something you set aside to make room for newer things. I stood there in that cold, unfinished space with my suitcase at my feet and my heart pounding in my ears. I could have spoken up right then. Demanded better. But I was raised in a generation that didn't raise voices. So I nodded. And I stayed. The first night, I barely slept. The cot squeaked with every breath. The space heater clicked off every hour. I wrapped myself in my cardigan, fingers stiff with cold, trying to ignore the quiet hum of the refrigerator on the other side of the wall. The next morning, Melanie handed me a paper plate with half a bagel and said, "The kids eat first, so we don't always have extras. Hope that's okay." I smiled. Said thank you. Inside, something burned. By the 5th day, I was invisible. They opened gifts without inviting me. Posted family pictures with captions like "Blessed Christmas with our little tribe," as if I wasn't 10 feet away, separated by drywall and disrespect. Melanie's sister stayed in the guest room with her kids the entire time. I heard them laughing, watching movies, decorating cookies. I wasn't asked to join once. One night, I came in to use the bathroom, the only one I had access to, and found Melanie's makeup strewn all over the sink. She looked up from the mirror and said, "Oh, just a heads up. Try to keep your time short in here. The kids don't like waiting." No apology. No warmth. Just instructions. Like I was an unwanted tenant. And that's when it hit me. They didn't just move me into the garage because they were out of space. They put me there because they thought they could. Because I didn't push back. Because I'd never made them earn the roof over their heads. But what they didn't know, what they never bothered to learn, is that the deed to this house, it's still in my name. Not Ryan's. Not Melanie's. Mine. You see, when Harold, my late husband, passed, we left the house to Ryan in our trust. But after a few poor decisions and some gambling debt, I stepped in and bought it back. Quietly. Legally. Ryan stayed in the home, paid me a token rent, and promised to treat it like his own. That was 10 years ago. Since then, I've paid the taxes, handled the insurance, covered the plumbing when it burst last winter. And yet here I was, treated like a squatter in my own property. That night, I opened my phone and emailed my lawyer. The message was short: I want to make changes to the lease agreement. Let's meet after the new year. The day after Christmas, Melanie stood in the kitchen complaining about the electric bill. We had the heater running in the garage all week, she said. Why should we pay for that? I laughed. I actually laughed. They looked at me, startled. I stood up, brushed the crumbs off my lap, and said, "Don't worry. I'll be taking care of the bill soon enough." Melanie scoffed. "You mean you'll pay it?" "No," I said, picking up my suitcase. "I mean you won't have to worry about it after January. Enjoy your last week in the house." She blinked. What's that supposed to mean? But I was already heading to the garage to grab the pie tin I came with. One final indignity: they never even returned it. By January 2nd, my lawyer had served them official notice. They had 30 days to vacate the premises. I wasn't cruel. I didn't kick them out in the middle of winter. But I made it clear, this house is mine. And I have plans for it now. Big ones. I've already met with a property manager. We're going to renovate, not much, just a fresh coat of paint, updated floors, and then I'll list it. Fully furnished. For rent. To a traveling nurse agency, good people who care for others, who need short-term housing and will respect the space they're given. Unlike the family who stuck me next to a lawnmower for Christmas. But here's the part that makes me smile every time I sip my morning coffee. They still don't believe I'll go through with it. Ryan texted me the other day, some half-hearted apology, trying to butter me up with childhood memories. "Remember when you used to build blanket forts with me, Mom?" "Yes, I do." "I also remember when you handed me a paper plate and said the kids get to eat first." Memories work both ways. This year, I'll be spending the holidays differently. In a warm condo I leased with the rental deposit from my house. No cot. No space heater. No apologies. And next Christmas? Well, I plan to send them a card. Just one line, in gold lettering. "Hope you're warm this year." People don't believe me when I tell them I didn't even raise my voice. Not once. No shouting. No door slamming. No dramatic confrontations with Melanie or Ryan. Just a single piece of paper, legally sound, quietly devastating, slipped under their door the first Monday after New Year's. The notice to vacate. You should have seen Melanie's face when she found it. I watched from the front porch swing, sipping my tea. She stepped outside in those ridiculous fluffy slippers of hers, hair in a frizzy ponytail, clutching the paper like it was a rattlesnake. She didn't even look up at me. Just stood there reading it again and again like the words would change if she squinted hard enough. Ryan came out next. Shirtless. Confused. "Irene," he called out, as if we were strangers. "What is this?" I took a slow sip of my tea. Let the silence stretch. Then, "It's notice. You've got 30 days to leave the house. I'll need the keys by February 1st. He blinked like I'd slapped him. "You can't be serious." "I'm the owner of record. The deed's in my name. It's perfectly serious." "You're evicting your own family?" Melanie shrieked. "After everything we've done for you?" The tea burned my tongue, but I kept my face smooth. "Like giving me a cot in the garage for Christmas?" She flushed. "That was temporary. We were full." "You were full of excuses," I said. "And now I'm full of boundaries." I didn't stay to hear them argue. I packed up my few things that night, took a cab to a quiet Airbnb nearby, and left the rest in the hands of my lawyer and the property manager. From that moment on, I communicated only through written letters and legal forms. No texts. No emotional traps. The more I distanced myself, the more desperate they became. Ryan called the next day. Then again. And again. He left voicemails that started polite, then pleading, then bitter. "This is revenge," one said. "You're punishing us. What kind of mother does this?" The kind who raised herself from nothing, worked 3 jobs, bought this house with sweat and sacrifice, and wasn't about to be treated like a houseplant in her own property. I didn't listen to the rest. I just saved the recordings, forwarded them to my lawyer, and reminded myself of what they had done. Every time I doubted myself, I thought about Christmas Eve, the sound of laughter in the living room while I lay awake in a drafty garage with a single blanket. I remembered Melanie telling me not to take long in the bathroom. I remembered the paper plate. And suddenly, my spine straightened again. The eviction deadline came faster than they expected. January blurred into icy winds and late-night packing. My property manager, Lisa, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with a clipboard and boots that meant business, did the final inspection with me. We stood in the empty kitchen on January 30th. "I replaced the blinds in the guest room," she said, jotting something down. "Someone let a dog chew through the cords." "I'm not surprised," I murmured. "Respect never lived in that room." She smiled faintly. "It's your house now. You can fill it with whoever you choose." And I did. By February 10th, I had a lease signed. The new tenant? A traveling ICU nurse named Tara from Denver. Late 30s. Kind eyes. She needed a quiet place while working 12-hour shifts at the nearby hospital. The moment I met her, I knew this house was about to be filled with the kind of peace it hadn't known in years. She walked through the front door and gasped, "It's so warm. And clean. It feels like someone loved this place." I nodded. Someone did. And someone will again. As for Ryan and Melanie, they moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Ryan had to ask his boss for an advance to cover the deposit. Melanie went back to part-time work at the nail salon. They posted on Facebook less frequently after that. But every once in a while, Melanie still couldn't help herself. She posted a blurry photo of a takeout meal with the caption, "Small beginnings, big blessings." And I'll admit, I laughed. Because that wasn't a blessing. That was consequences. In early March, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Ryan. It said, "Mom, I know we messed up. I know we hurt you. But you didn't have to do this. You could have talked to me. You could have given us a chance to fix it. You didn't have to humiliate us." I sat at the window holding that letter in my hand for a long time. And then I wrote one back. "Ryan, you had your chance to fix it when you saw me shivering in the garage and did nothing. When you watched your wife hand me half a bagel and didn't speak up. When you let me be treated like an inconvenience instead of the reason you had a roof at all. This wasn't humiliation. This was accountability. I gave you a home. You gave me 4 walls and a draft. Consider us even. Mom. I didn't mail it. I didn't need to. Just writing it was enough. The best part of all of this? Isn't the rental income. Or the peace. Or the warm cup of tea I drink in my new condo every evening. It's the control. The knowledge that I finally stopped shrinking myself to fit into their version of family. That I said enough, not with screaming or drama, but with action. They made me feel like excess. Like a seasonal burden. Like a garage guest waiting to die quietly. But I turned that garage exile into a full-circle reclaiming of my power. They tried to box me up. I turned the box into a contract. They locked me out. I handed them the key to leave. A few days ago, I drove by the house. Just slow enough to see the lights were on. A potted plant sat in the window. A curtain fluttered. Tara had made it her home now. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a signature on a lease. A smile in the rear-view mirror. And a woman who knows her worth, and won't apologize for enforcing it. I thought I was done with them. After the eviction. After the letter. After I handed the keys to Tara and finally exhaled after months of being treated like a stray cat begging for space near the heater. I thought that would be the end of the story. But they weren't done with me. Shame doesn't always come with silence. Sometimes, it comes with entitlement in disguise. It started with a knock. Not at my new condo. I made sure Ryan didn't know where I lived now, but at my church. I was sitting near the back, Same pew I've sat in every Sunday for the last 20 years. The choir had just finished singing when Pastor Martin stepped aside to greet the congregation, and in walked Melanie. Hair curled, face powdered, a fake smile stretching across her lips. She didn't sit. She walked straight up the aisle like it was a wedding march and sat right next to me. I didn't look at her. I just whispered, "This seat's taken." She leaned in close enough for me to smell her perfume, sickly sweet like store-bought frosting. "You embarrassed us," she hissed. "In front of the whole neighborhood. You made Ryan look weak." I kept my eyes on the pulpit. I didn't make him look weak. He chose to be spineless. She grabbed my hand, not in affection, but in warning. "We deserve part of that rental income. That house was supposed to go to Ryan. Everyone knows it." I turned to her slowly. "No. What everyone knows," I said in a voice that didn't rise above a whisper, "is that you put a 75-year-old woman in a garage on Christmas Eve. What I did was called correction. You should be grateful it was only legal." She blinked. I saw it, that flicker of fear behind the rage. Because I wasn't the same woman they used to walk all over. I stood up and left before the sermon even began. Later that week, I got an email from a man named Craig, a local real estate agent. He said, "Hello, Ms. Harris. Your son Ryan inquired about a home loan using your property as an asset. He mentioned being a co-owner of 741 Oak Ridge Lane. Can you confirm?" I nearly spit out my coffee. I called Craig myself. "I'm the sole owner," I told him. "And he's never to use my name on anything again." Craig sounded embarrassed. He said you were just renting it out temporarily. I laughed. "Tell him to ask the tenants if it's temporary. I believe they just signed a 12-month lease." Then I hung up. And that's when I decided, this was no longer just about boundaries. This was about legacy. I made another call. To a friend of mine, Gloria, a retired accountant with more spreadsheets than hobbies. We'd known each other since my PTA days. She always said I was too soft with my son. I met her for coffee the next morning and said, "I want to protect everything I have from them." Gloria got to work like it was tax season on steroids. Together, we reviewed every asset. My savings. My small pension. The house, now bringing in stable monthly income. Even the little bits, jewelry, antique furniture, the rental condo I now lived in. She helped me create a living trust. With very specific terms. Ryan would get nothing unless he completed 1 full year of therapy and wrote a signed letter admitting what he did. Not just to me, but to himself. And Melanie? She was cut out entirely. Emily, their daughter, my only granddaughter, was protected. Her name was placed in the trust. She would inherit her college fund directly when she turned 18. No detours. No middlemen. I added a clause too, just for fun. Any attempt to dispute this trust will result in full forfeiture by the challenger. Let them try me. A few weeks later, Ryan showed up at the condo. He must have gotten the address from one of my neighbors. I saw his reflection in the peephole, tired, thinner, hairline receding faster than truth under pressure. I didn't open the door. But I did speak through the security speaker. "Hi, Ryan." He looked around like he wasn't sure where the voice was coming from. "Mom, please, just let me talk." "I'm listening." There was a long pause. Then, "Melanie's gone. She left. Took Emily with her. Moved back in with her sister in Ohio." That hit me in the chest, not for her, but for my granddaughter. "Emily's okay," he added quickly. "She just doesn't want to talk to me right now." I didn't say anything. Because that's what consequences sound like. Ryan leaned closer to the door. "I lost everything." "No," I said. "You lost access. You still have your life. That's more than you gave me when you put me in that garage." "I was wrong," he whispered. "But I don't know how to fix it." I considered it. Then said, "Start by getting help. Not from me. From someone who'll hold you accountable." Then I hung up the intercom and walked away. 2 months passed. Then 3. Tara renewed her lease. She even invited me to dinner one night, made baked ziti and told me the house felt like a sanctuary. I smiled the entire meal. I drove home that night in the rain, wipers thumping softly, and felt something shift inside me. Not glee. Not revenge. Relief. They couldn't hurt me anymore. But fate has a way of circling back. In late June, I got a certified letter. From Ryan. I opened it slowly, ready for more excuses. But it wasn't what I expected. It was genuine. A letter. Long. Written in real ink. Not typed. He admitted everything. The manipulation. The passivity. The way he let Melanie control the household. The way he silenced himself because it was easier than confronting what I became. He talked about Emily. How she asked why Grandma didn't come around anymore. And how he didn't have the heart to lie to her again. I don't expect forgiveness, he wrote. But I'm not pretending anymore. I've started therapy. I don't know where it's going. But I wanted you to know I've begun. I folded the letter and sat in silence. I didn't cry. But I did breathe deeper than I had in months. I didn't reply. Not yet. That wasn't the point. Sometimes, planting the seed is enough. Let him water it. Let him prove it. I walked by the house last week. Tara had added hanging lights on the porch and painted the shutters navy blue. 2 new tenants were moving into the basement unit, a mother and daughter. I heard laughter echoing inside the home. Real laughter. The kind I hadn't heard in years. And I smiled. Not because I won. But because I reclaimed what mattered. My home. My dignity. My voice. And I'd do it again, 1,000 times over. I never thought I'd find peace in paperwork. But the binder Gloria made for me, thick, labeled, color-coded, became something like armor. Inside were updated deeds, trust agreements, account logs, contact sheets, and a letter of intent for everything I owned. It wasn't just paperwork. It was power. I'd spent so many years giving without conditions. Saying yes when I meant maybe. Offering softness in a world that mistook it for surrender. But now, every document, every signature, every "this stays with me" was a declaration. I won't be taken for granted again. Still, even with that armor, there were nights I missed my granddaughter. Emily. I thought about the way she used to braid my hair while we watched cooking shows. The way she snuck extra chocolate chips into the pancake batter when Melanie wasn't looking. She had her father's soft heart, but not his cowardice. Or maybe she hadn't grown into his cowardice yet. And I wanted to make sure she never did. So when I heard from her, it wasn't through Ryan, or a call, or even a knock on the door. It was a letter. Folded into a handmade card with glitter and crooked handwriting. Sent to my P.O. box, the one I kept when I moved out of the main house. Dear Grandma. I miss you. I'm sorry we didn't talk at Christmas. I didn't know what was happening. Mommy said you were mad at us and that you didn't want to be around anymore. But I don't believe that. Can I see you? Love. Emily. I read that card 20 times before I put it down. My hands trembled, not with anger but hope. That child still had a chance. And I wasn't going to let Melanie or even Ryan take that from her. I waited a week. Then I called a lawyer, this time a family law specialist, and asked a single question: what are my rights as a grandparent to request time with a minor child? She gave me the options. And I didn't file anything, not yet. I wasn't trying to start another war. I was simply preparing, just in case. Instead, I wrote back. Dear Emily. I miss you too. So very much. You did nothing wrong. I love you always, and I would love to see you, if it's okay with your dad. Ask him to call me. If not, you can keep writing. I'll write you back every time. Love. Grandma. 2 days later, I got a call from Ryan. No voicemail this time. Just a live voice, when I answered. I got her letter, he said. I assumed you would, I replied. She cried when she wrote it. She misses you more than I realized. I stayed silent. Let the guilt soak in on its own. I've been taking her to a counselor, he added after a moment. Since Melanie left. My chest tightened. And how is she? She's angry. Confused. But better than she was in January. Good, I said. That means she's healing. Another pause. Then he said the one thing I didn't expect. She wants to see you. So the following Sunday, Emily came to visit me at the condo. She wore a bright yellow hoodie and carried a small canvas tote filled with drawings. Her eyes lit up the second she saw me, and before I could even open my arms, she tackled me in a hug. I held her like air after drowning. We baked muffins. The real kind. With extra chocolate chips and no resentment hiding in the frosting. She showed me her sketches. She asked if I still had Lucky's photo. I told her yes, it was framed right next to my bed. At one point, while stirring batter, she asked, "Did Mommy really make you sleep in the garage?" I nodded. Why? I looked down at the bowl, then back at her. Some people forget how to treat others with respect when they think they're in control. But I remembered who I am, and I took that control back. She thought about that for a long moment, then nodded. You're the boss of your life. I smiled. That's right. After Emily's visit, I felt something inside me soften. Not toward Ryan. Not even toward Melanie. But toward myself. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding. That week, I called a contractor and scheduled updates on the house's second unit. I didn't need more income, I wanted more purpose. I wanted it to be a place where people who deserved warmth could find it. By April, the basement apartment was ready. I furnished it myself with thrifted charm and little touches, embroidered pillows, real curtains, a handmade quilt from Gloria's quilting group. Then I listed it as a short-term rental for traveling social workers, teachers, and nurses. The first guest? A young woman named Nia, who just graduated from a teaching program and was starting her first job nearby. When she walked in, she gasped. "This doesn't feel like a rental," she said. "It feels like someone cares here." I smiled. I do. Sometime in May, I got another message from Melanie. This one wasn't handwritten. It was a long-winded email, dripping with self-pity. "I made mistakes, I know. But you didn't have to destroy our family. I lost my home, my marriage, and now my daughter barely speaks to me. I'm sure you're satisfied." I stared at the screen for a long while. And then, I deleted it. No reply. No reaction. No apology needed. Because silence, sometimes, is the loudest boundary of all. But that email did confirm something. She still hadn't changed. And I felt no guilt for keeping my house exactly where it belonged, with people who understood value. In June, Tara's lease came up again. She renewed for another year and offered to pay more if she could use the backyard for a small garden. Of course, I said. When I visited the house a few weeks later, I saw rows of tomatoes, basil, lavender, and sunflowers blooming behind the old fence. The same fence Ryan used to hit baseballs over as a kid. And now? It fed people who actually appreciated it. There's a peace in that. A full-circle kind of satisfaction. Watching something you built, something others tried to devalue, thrive without them. Emily visits once a month now. We've started painting a mural together, not on a canvas, but on one of the condo's blank walls. She brings sketches. I bring the brushes. Each section tells a piece of our story. On her last visit, she asked, "Can we paint the garage too?" I smiled. "We don't need to." "Why not?" "Because that chapter's already closed." She nodded, like she understood. Then she said, "Maybe we can paint a door opening." And I said, "Only if we paint someone walking through it." I don't know what Ryan's future holds. I hope therapy is doing something. I hope Emily grows up with a compass stronger than either of her parents. But me? I've never felt more certain of who I am. I'm the woman who survived Christmas in a garage and came out the other side owning every room she was once denied. I'm the woman who rents her house to heroes instead of users. I'm the woman who planted peace where resentment used to live. And I didn't do it with rage. I did it with a pen, a spine, and a key that always belonged to me. The mural is finished now. Emily and I added the final touches last weekend. A bold blue open door with a path leading out, flowers blooming at the edge, and a figure walking away. We painted it faceless. Intentional. Because it could be me. Or Emily. Or any woman who finally says, "No more." It's painted across the back wall of my condo living room. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. Some guests think it's abstract. But Emily knows. I know. It's a goodbye, and a beginning. I received one last letter from Ryan this week. Not handwritten this time, typed, and surprisingly clear of blame. I signed the trust paperwork. I won't contest anything. I understand the conditions, and I've told Emily the truth. I won't ask you for anything else, but I do hope, someday, we'll be able to sit in the same room again. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel torn. Because part of healing is learning what doesn't need fixing anymore. Ryan is his own man. He chose Melanie. He chose silence. He chose the garage. And now he can choose whether or not to rebuild, but I won't be the foundation anymore. Tara's garden has exploded. Tomatoes as red as wine, sunflowers reaching sky high, herbs that make the entire backyard smell like summer. Last week, she invited me to her first cookout. A few of the nurses from her hospital came, and one of them said, "This house feels like it has a soul." I looked around and nodded. It does. Because I put it back together. Because it's finally being lived in with gratitude. I sat under the string lights, listening to the laughter, and thought back to that first night on the cot in the garage. The smell of gasoline and paint. The silence from the people who were supposed to protect me. That garage doesn't exist anymore, at least not the way it did. Tara turned it into a yoga space. She painted the walls a soft sage green, laid down fresh laminate flooring, added speakers and an essential oil diffuser. Where I once froze and cried quietly into a thin blanket, there is now warmth, breath, peace. Poetic, isn't it? Emily turned 9 last month. She asked if she could have a grandma sleepover, and I agreed immediately. She showed up with glitter nail polish, a stuffed llama, and a backpack filled with snacks. At bedtime she turned to me and said, "Grandma, if I ever get a house, I'm going to let you have the best room." I chuckled, tucking her in. "That's sweet, baby, but I'll probably be too old to climb stairs by then." "Then I'll make it a ramp," she said fiercely. "And it'll have cookies and books and squishy pillows and a foot massage chair." Now that, I smiled, is real love. She fell asleep holding my hand. I've started writing again. Not letters. A book. Well, a memoir. Or maybe just a long letter to the next woman who finds herself in the cold, wondering if she's overreacting. If she's imagining the disrespect. If the paper plate, the eye rolls, the too short blanket are all just signs of being dramatic. They're not. I write it all, the years of silence, the way family can weaponize help, the cruelty wrapped in convenience. I write about the garage. About the law. About the lease. I'm calling it The Key Was Always Mine. Gloria says I should self-publish. Tara offered to design the cover. It's not about fame. Or revenge. It's about proof. That you can reclaim your life at 75. That being pushed aside doesn't mean you're finished. That the most dangerous person is the one they thought would never speak. I had a dream the other night. I was in the garage again, but this time it was warm. Lit by fairy lights. Soft music playing. And Lucky, my old golden retriever, was there, curled up at my feet, tail thumping like he used to when he knew he'd done something good. I bent down and whispered, "They tried to bury me." And he looked up at me with those big amber eyes like he understood. "They didn't bury me. They planted me. And now? I've bloomed. So if anyone asks where I live now, I tell them I'm staying in a condo. But the truth? I live in a boundary. A boundary I built myself, brick by brick, with documents, silence and steel. A boundary that says, you do not get to mistreat me just because you call me family. And behind that boundary? There's peace. There's warmth. There's a mural of an open door. And a woman who never went back to the garage again.